So there I was, Commander Jake Morrison, representing the entire human race in what could generously be called the galaxy's most dysfunctional courtroom. And by courtroom, I mean a massive crystalline chamber floating in space, filled with creatures that looked like they'd been designed by a committee of mad scientists having a really bad day. The whole mess started 3 weeks ago, when our diplomatic team made first contact with the Galactic Tribunal. Everything was going great until Ambassador Patricia Williams mentioned humanity's love of cheese during the cultural exchange dinner. Apparently, consuming dairy products after weaning is considered a war crime in 17 star systems, and our ability to digest lactose marks us as genetically aggressive predators with unstable digestive evolution. I know, right? We've been worried about nuclear weapons ending civilization, and it turns out cheese is what makes us terrifying. Now here I stood, facing Ambassador Zephlon Quillbeak, an 8-foot-tall bird creature who wore robes that looked like they cost more than my entire military salary. His beak kept clicking in what the universal translator insisted was legal terminology, but sounded suspiciously like someone eating very expensive crackers. The defendant species, designation human, stands accused of biological warfare through aggressive cheese consumption, Quillbeak announced, his voice echoing through the chamber with all the pompousness of a reality TV judge. The evidence is overwhelming. Your people consume fermented milk products with disturbing enthusiasm and show no remorse for this evolutionary transgression. Behind me, Admiral Rebecca Martinez, my direct superior and the woman who'd drawn the short straw for babysitting duty, whispered urgently, "Morrison, please tell me you're taking this seriously." "Oh, I'm taking it very seriously, Red," I whispered back. "I'm just trying to figure out if this is more like a boss fight or a puzzle level." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "It's a trial that could determine whether humanity gets wiped from existence or welcomed into galactic society. Not everything is a video game. Everything is a video game if you approach it right." The tribunal's head judge, a massive tentacled creature that looked like Cthulhu's disappointed older brother, made a sound like a garbage disposal eating silverware. The translator helpfully informed us this meant order in the court. "Due to the severity of the charges," Quillbeak continued, preening his metallic feathers, "the tribunal invokes the ancient right of trial by combat. The defendant species will select a champion to face our designated warrior. Victory proves worthiness to join galactic civilization. Defeat results in species quarantine until such time as your aggressive dairy habits are corrected." "Quarantine?" Red asked. "Complete isolation from galactic society. No trade, no communication, no expansion beyond your current solar system. Essentially cosmic timeout until you learn to behave." I raised my hand. "Quick question. When you say trial by combat, are we talking turn-based or real-time?" The entire chamber fell silent. Several hundred alien eyes, tentacles, and various sensory organs turned toward me. "I volunteer as humanity's champion," I announced before Red could stop me. "Morrison, no," she hissed. "Morrison, yes, this is going to be awesome." The arena preparation area looked like a cross between a medieval armory and a space station medical bay. Weapons of various alien designs hung from the walls, while diagnostic equipment hummed and beeped in languages I couldn't identify. I was studying a plasma rifle that looked like it had been designed by someone who really loved the color purple when the viewing screen activated. "Behold," announced the arena's AI system in a voice that suggested it had been programmed by someone with a flair for drama. "Your opponent, Kraxon the Destroyer, champion of the Violent Nebula, conqueror of 12 worlds, undefeated in 47 trials of combat." The screen showed what could only be described as the galaxy's angriest rhinoceros. If rhinoceroses were 12 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating, and had arms the size of telephone poles, Kraxon's introduction video looked like it had been directed by Michael Bay on a caffeine bender, complete with explosions, dramatic slow-motion shots, and what I swear was the theme from a Gladiator movie. "His victory record," the AI continued helpfully, "includes defeating the Cyber Knights of Proxima, the Battle Monks of the Screaming Nebula, and that one really angry guy from the Andromeda Galaxy who kept challenging everyone to fight." "Okay," I said, taking notes on a tablet. "Big, strong, lots of experience. Any weaknesses listed?" Red, who had been reviewing the combat rules with the dedication of someone studying for the most important exam in human history, looked up from her datapad. Morrison, this isn't a character sheet. This is a real warrior who has never lost a fight. Everyone's got a pattern, Red. You just have to figure out what it is. In the arena's concession area, a nervous-looking creature that resembled a cross between a hamster and a satellite dish was frantically restocking snack containers. His name tag read, Bleep the Anxious, Customer Service, and he was having what appeared to be a mild panic attack. Oh dear, Bleep muttered, dropping a container of something that smelled like cinnamon and regret. A human in the arena. I've read the briefings. Unpredictable. Chaotic. Last week one of them tried to put pineapple on a perfectly good neutron pizza. The horror. Meanwhile, in the broadcast booth, twin commentators Zix and Zax were reviewing their notes for the upcoming fight. This is unprecedented, Zax, said Zix, a blue-skinned alien with too many eyes. A species requesting trial by combat for their first galactic interaction. Indeed, Zix, replied Zax, who looked identical to his brother except for being green instead of blue. And their champion appears to be treating this like some form of recreational activity. Our research team says humans have something called games, where they simulate combat for enjoyment. Fascinating and disturbing, Craxon has been preparing for this fight using traditional meditation, weapon practice, and the ritual consumption of his enemy's courage. The human has been asking the maintenance staff about the arena's technical specifications. Back in the preparation area, I was having an enlightening conversation with Craxon himself. Up close, he was even more impressive, like a walking tank with anger management issues. But he seemed curious about his unusual opponent. You are strange, small human, Craxon rumbled in a voice that sounded like an earthquake talking. Most warriors facing me spend their final hours in prayer or preparation. You ask questions about respawn timers and damage calculations. Well, I said, adjusting my armor straps, I like to understand the mechanics of what I'm dealing with. So, when you conquered those 12 worlds, did you use the same strategy each time, or did you adapt based on the terrain and opponent capabilities? Craxon's massive brow furrowed. I crush things. It has always worked. Right, but surely you must have some tactical preferences. Preferred engagement range, favorite weapons, environmental factors that give you an advantage? I crush things very effectively. I nodded thoughtfully. Okay, we're definitely dealing with a tank build here. High damage, high durability, probably low mobility. Good to know. Ambassador Quillbeak stood at the center of the arena, his metallic feathers catching the artificial sunlight as he addressed the assembled crowd. The stadium held roughly 50,000 aliens from across the galaxy, all of whom had apparently cleared their schedules to watch humanity either join galactic society or get relegated to cosmic detention. The rules of trial by combat, Quillbeak announced with the enthusiasm of someone reading warranty information, are ancient and sacred. The combat shall take place within this neutral arena, using standard galactic weaponry. No outside assistance, no technological enhancements beyond basic armor, no interference from spectators. The trial continues until one champion yields, is incapacitated, or achieves victory through the honorable defeat of their opponent. The arena itself was impressive. A circular platform about the size of a football field, suspended in the middle of the stadium with energy barriers to keep the fighters from accidentally flying into the crowd. Various weapon racks were positioned around the perimeter, and the floor was marked with traditional combat circles that had been used for thousands of years. I raised my hand. Excuse me, but is there like a hard mode option? The entire stadium fell silent. Even the concession vendors stopped hawking their suspicious-smelling snacks. Hard mode? Quillbeak's beak clicked in confusion. You know, extra challenges, bonus objectives, maybe some environmental hazards to make things more interesting. This seems pretty straightforward as it is. Red grabbed my arm. Morrison, what are you doing? Think about it, Red. This is humanity's first impression on the galactic stage. Do we really want to be known as the species that took the easy route? The crowd started murmuring in dozens of alien languages. The universal translator was working overtime, but I caught phrases like additional challenges, voluntary difficulty increase, and are they insane? Craxon, who had been quietly confident up until this point, was staring at me like I'd suggested we fight while juggling flaming chainsaws, which, honestly, sounded kind of awesome. In all the history of trial by combat, Quillbeak said slowly, no champion has ever requested additional challenges. The standard trial is difficult enough. Many warriors spend years preparing just to survive the basic format. Right. But here's the thing, I said, warming to the subject. Where I come from, we have different difficulty settings for everything. Easy mode for beginners, normal mode for casual players, hard mode for people who want a real challenge, and nightmare mode for the absolute masochists. It's about proving not just that you can win, but that you can overcome anything the game throws at you. I gestured to the arena. This is basically normal mode. It's fine, but it doesn't really showcase what humans are capable of, you know? The alien spectators were going absolutely wild. I saw creatures placing bets, taking photos, and what looked suspiciously like live streaming the proceedings to other star systems. In the preparation area, other warriors scheduled for upcoming trials were gathering to watch. A mantis-like creature from the spiral arm approached me during a break in the rule discussion. Human warrior, it clicked. I have studied combat for 3 centuries. Never have I met someone who treats mortal trial as recreational challenge. What can I say? I'm a completionist. If there's a harder version available, I'm going to try it. This is madness. You could simply win standard trial and achieve your species' goals. Yeah, but where's the fun in that? The mantis creature made a sound that the translator interpreted as nervous laughter, but sounded more like someone stepping on bubble wrap. The tribunal huddled to discuss this unprecedented request. The debate lasted 20 minutes and involved increasingly animated tentacle waving from the head judge. Finally, Quillbeak returned to the center of the arena. The tribunal has reached a decision. Champion Morrison, your request for additional challenges is unprecedented. However, the ancient laws do not forbid such modifications, provided both parties agree. He turned to Craxon. Do you accept the humans' proposal for enhanced trial conditions? Craxon looked at me, then at the expectant crowd, then back at me. His pride was clearly warring with his survival instincts. Craxon does not fear additional challenges, he rumbled finally. If the small human wishes to face harder trial, Craxon will crush him in harder trial. The crowd exploded in cheers. Excellent, Quillbeak said, though he looked like he was already regretting this decision. The modifications will be announced momentarily. I grinned and gave Red a thumbs up. She had her face in her hands. Morrison, she said through her fingers, you do realize you just volunteered to make an already impossible fight even more impossible, right? Red, I said, doing some warm-up stretches. I once beat Dark Souls blindfolded with a broken controller while eating pizza. This is just Tuesday. The tribunal's modifications were announced with all the ceremony of a cosmic game show reveal. Quillbeak stood before a massive holographic display that showed the arena's new configuration, and honestly, it looked like someone had fed a bunch of death trap blueprints into a computer and told it to get creative. The enhanced trial by combat will include the following modifications, Quillbeak announced, his voice carrying a mix of official pompousness and barely concealed terror at what they'd agreed to. Environmental hazards will activate at random intervals, including gravity field alterations, energy storms, and mobile terrain obstacles. Weapon spawns will be randomized rather than fixed. And finally, the opposing champion will be permitted to bring 2 auxiliary warriors. The crowd went absolutely mental. I'm talking alien equivalent of a Super Bowl crowd discovering that halftime includes both aliens fighting and actual explosions. Bleep the Anxious dropped an entire crate of snacks and just stared at the mess, occasionally making small whimpering sounds. So Craxon gets backup, I mused, studying the arena schematic. That's actually interesting. It changes the whole dynamic from a duel to a tactical scenario. Red pulled me aside for what I assumed would be another attempt at injecting sanity into the situation. Morrison, you turned a difficult fight into an impossible one. Craxon was already out of your league. Now he gets 2 friends, the arena is going to actively try to kill you. And the weapons are going to be scattered randomly like some kind of cosmic Easter egg hunt. I know, isn't it great? This is way more interesting than just standing in a circle hitting each other with swords. It's not interesting, it's suicidal. Red, remember when Command sent me to clear that space pirate stronghold on Titan? Everyone said it was suicide then too. You had a full squad and orbital bombardment support. Details. Meanwhile, Kraxen was in his preparation area, meeting his newly assigned auxiliary warriors. The first was Vorthak the Cunning, a lizard-like creature who specialized in ranged combat and tactical analysis. The second was Grim Stormfist, who looked like someone had crossed a gorilla with a thundercloud and given it anger management issues. This is most unusual, Vorthak hissed, studying video footage of human combat techniques that the tribunal had hastily compiled. Their warrior moves in patterns I do not recognize. He treats battle like puzzle to be solved rather than contest of strength. Puzzles can be solved by crushing them, Kraxen rumbled confidently. I'm not certain that approach will be effective here, Vorthak replied, watching footage of me asking maintenance workers about the arena's technical specifications. He appears to be gathering intelligence about the combat environment with the thoroughness of a military engineer. Grim Stormfist just grunted and punched a wall, leaving a crater in the reinforced alien metal. Back in my prep area, I was having the time of my life. The arena's maintenance chief, a spider-like creature named Clicksworth, had been incredibly helpful in explaining the various systems. The gravity generators operate on a 15-second cycle, Clicksworth explained, his 8 arms gesturing at different parts of the arena schematic. The energy storms follow predictable patterns based on charge buildup in the field generators, and the mobile terrain obstacles, well, they're on track, so once you figure out the timing... This is perfect, I said, taking notes furiously. It's like a puzzle platformer with combat elements. The environmental hazards aren't random chaos, they're mechanics to be learned and exploited. Exploited? Clicksworth's multiple eyes blinked in confusion. These hazards are designed to test warrior adaptability under extreme conditions. They are meant to be survived, not exploited. Same difference, really. The pre-fight ceremony was suitably dramatic. Kraxen and his team entered the arena to thunderous applause, their combined presence radiating the kind of menace that made small children hide behind their parents' tentacles. They positioned themselves in traditional combat formation, weapons ready, expressions grim and determined. Then I walked out, waved to the crowd, and immediately started examining the nearest weapon rack. Oh, cool. They've got plasma rifles. Are these the Mark 7 model or the newer Mark 8? I called to the arena supervisor. The supervisor, a professional-looking alien in official robes, seemed taken aback. They are standard galactic weaponry, Champion Morrison. Right. But which standard? Because the Mark 7 has that overheating issue after sustained fire, while the Mark 8 has better cooling but lower damage per shot. It affects optimal engagement strategy. From across the arena, Kraxen shouted, "Do you mock the sacred ritual of combat, human?" Not at all, I called back cheerfully. I'm just getting familiar with the available equipment. You wouldn't start a boss fight without checking your inventory, right? The ceremonial speeches began. Quillbeak delivered a lengthy address about honor, tradition, and the weight of civilizations hanging in the balance. Kraxen responded with a war cry that shattered several pieces of arena equipment. Vorthak gave what sounded like a tactical analysis disguised as a battle hymn. Grim Stormfist just roared and hit things. When it was my turn, I stepped forward and cleared my throat. I'd like to thank the tribunal for this opportunity, the arena staff for their excellent technical briefings, and Bleep for those really great snacks in the prep room. This is going to be fun. Oh, and one quick question. Are there achievements for style points, or is this purely a completion-based scenario? The silence was deafening. Right then, I said, selecting my starting weapon. Let's get this boss fight started. The opening bell, which was actually more of a harmonic vibration that made my teeth itch, signaled the start of what would either be humanity's greatest triumph or most spectacular failure, probably both, knowing my luck. Kraxen and his team came at me with the coordination of seasoned military professionals, which would have been terrifying if I hadn't spent the last hour studying their probable strategy. Kraxen charged straight ahead, relying on his superior strength and durability. Vorthak flanked left with ranged weapons providing covering fire. Grim Stormfist took the right flank, ready to cut off escape routes. Classic pincer movement. Solid tactics, but predictable. I immediately sprinted toward the nearest weapon rack, dodging Vorthak's plasma bolts and using the arena's geometry to break up their formation. The first environmental hazard activated right on schedule, a gravity field reversal that flipped the entire arena's orientation. Gravity flip in 3, 2, 1, I counted aloud, timing my jump perfectly to use the reversal as a launching pad. And we're airborne. The alien commentators were having a field day. He predicted the gravity shift, Zix exclaimed. How did he know the timing? Zach's here, and I believe the human spent considerable time studying the arena's technical specifications. He's treating the environmental hazards like predictable game mechanics rather than random obstacles. Kraxon, caught off guard by the gravity reversal, crashed into a weapon rack. I used the distraction to grab a plasma rifle and an energy shield, then positioned myself near one of the mobile terrain obstacles. A massive rotating barrier that moved in a figure-8 pattern. Morrison! Red's voice came through the arena's communication system. What are you doing? Playing to my strengths, I called back, using the rotating barrier as cover while I analyzed the weapon spawn patterns. These aren't random at all. They follow an algorithmic distribution based on combat intensity and duration. Vorthak had recovered from the gravity shift and was laying down suppressing fire. His accuracy was impressive, but he was firing at where I had been, not where I was going to be. Classic mistake. He was playing by traditional combat rules while I was playing the arena like a level. Incoming energy storm, I announced to no one in particular, watching the charge indicators on the arena's generators. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, the energy storm erupted across the battlefield, crackling bolts of lightning that would fry anyone caught in the open. Except I was not in the open anymore. I was positioned behind one of the arena's natural lightning rods, a decorative spire that drew the electrical discharge harmlessly into the ground. Grim Stormfist wasn't so lucky. He took a direct hit and went down smoking, though he was still conscious and very, very angry about it. 1 down, I muttered, checking my ammunition levels. 2 to go plus environmental hazards on a 15-second rotation cycle. Kraxon, realizing that brute force wasn't working, adapted his strategy. He started using the environmental hazards to his advantage, timing his attacks to coincide with gravity shifts and terrain changes. It was actually pretty impressive tactical thinking. Unfortunately for him, I'd been doing the same thing for the last 10 minutes. The arena's mobile obstacles created natural choke points and tactical opportunities. I led Kraxon into a pursuit through one of the moving barrier configurations, using my smaller size and agility to navigate the gaps while he was forced to smash through the barriers themselves. He's treating the entire arena like a 3-dimensional puzzle, Zax commentated excitedly. Instead of fighting against the environmental hazards, he's incorporating them into his strategy. This is unprecedented, Zax. Traditional combat doctrine emphasizes adapting to circumstances, but the human appears to be actively manipulating circumstances to his advantage. Vorthak, meanwhile, had figured out that I was predicting the environmental changes and started trying to use that against me. He began timing his attacks to force me into positions where I'd be vulnerable when the next hazard activated. Smart lizard. Unfortunately for him, I'd anticipated that he'd figure that out. The next gravity shift was a lateral one, throwing everything sideways instead of up or down. I used it to ricochet off 2 walls and a floating weapon platform, grabbed a plasma sword mid-flight, and came down on Vorthak's position like an avenging angel with really good timing. The crowd was going absolutely insane. Even the professional alien commentators had abandoned any pretense of objectivity and were cheering for the sheer audacity of my approach. Did he just use a gravity anomaly to perform a wall jump sword strike? Zix asked incredulously. I believe he did, Zix. I believe he actually did. That left Kraxon, who was now looking at me with what I recognized as professional respect mixed with complete bewilderment. Grim had recovered from his electrical encounter and was back in the fight, but he was moving more cautiously now. You fight like no warrior I have encountered, Kraxon rumbled, hefting his massive warhammer. You treat sacred combat like children's game. Everything's a game if you understand the rules, I replied, watching the hazard timers. The question is whether you're playing to win or playing to have fun. And which are you doing, human? I grinned, timing my next move perfectly with the arena's rotating platform system. Both. The final phase of the fight involved me basically turning the entire arena into a weapon. I used the gravity generators to create a chain reaction of ricocheting debris, timed an energy storm to provide cover for a flanking maneuver, and convinced the mobile terrain obstacles to form a temporary barrier that trapped Kraxen in a tactically disadvantageous position. The finishing move came when I realized that the arena's various systems were all connected to the same power grid, a few precisely placed plasma rifle shots at the right junction points, and suddenly I had control over the timing of the environmental hazards. Gravity flip, energy storm, and mobile barrier convergence in 3, 2, 1, I announced calmly. The combined effect launched me off a gravity anomaly, through an energy storm that supercharged my plasma sword, and directly at Kraxen's position just as the mobile barriers locked him in place. Game over. The arena fell silent except for the gentle hum of power systems cycling down and the occasional spark from damaged equipment. Kraxen lay unconscious beneath a pile of arena debris. Grim was twitching slightly from residual electrical discharge, and Vorthak was making pained hissing sounds while clutching his pride along with his various bruises. I stood in the center of the arena plasma sword, still crackling with residual energy, and looked up at the crowd of 50,000 aliens who were staring at me like I'd just pulled off the galaxy's most elaborate magic trick. Then Bleep the Anxious started clapping. The sound echoed through the stunned silence for a moment before spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Soon the entire stadium was erupting in cheers, applause, and various alien sounds that the universal translator insisted meant appreciation, but sounded more like someone running a symphony orchestra through a blender. Ambassador Quillbeak descended to the arena floor, his metallic feathers somewhat ruffled by the proceedings. He approached with the careful dignity of someone trying to maintain official composure, while secretly being completely blown away by what he'd just witnessed. Champion Morrison, he announced formally, though I caught him glancing nervously at the various arena systems that were still sparking. By right of victory and trial by combat, humanity is hereby welcomed into the galactic community, with full membership privileges and responsibilities. Awesome, I said, finally powering down the plasma sword. Do you guys have like a welcome packet or orientation materials? I'm really curious about the trade regulations and cultural exchange programs. Kraxen, who had regained consciousness and was sitting up with the help of medical staff, called out across the arena. Human warrior. I have been defeated, but I am not ashamed. Your fighting style. It is like nothing in the combat archives. Where did you learn such techniques? Honestly, video games mostly. A little military training, but primarily decades of playing games where you have to figure out the mechanics and exploit them to win. The massive alien warrior looked confused. Video games? Simulated combat scenarios designed for entertainment and skill development. We create artificial challenges and then figure out creative ways to overcome them. It's like a whole cultural thing. Vorthak, despite his injuries, slithered over to join the conversation. You treat real combat like simulated combat? Well, yeah. The principles are the same. Understand the rules, identify the patterns, exploit the mechanics, adapt to unexpected variables. Whether it's digital or physical doesn't really change the fundamental approach. The alien crowd was listening to this exchange with fascination. Several were taking notes. Red finally made it down to the arena floor, and I could tell she was torn between relief that I'd won and exasperation that I'd made it look so casual. Morrison, she said, you just defeated 3 legendary warriors in enhanced combat conditions and you're explaining it like you beat a difficult level in a video game. Because that's basically what it was, Red. Just with better graphics and higher stakes. Quillbeak cleared his throat. If I may interrupt this fascinating cultural exchange, the galactic community would like to offer Champion Morrison a position as combat innovation consultant. Your unique approach to warfare has generated considerable interest among our military strategists. That sounds interesting. What would the job involve? Primarily reviewing our existing combat doctrines and suggesting improvements based on your gaming methodologies. Also, we're hoping you might be available to consult on some of our more challenging military situations. I looked at Red, who shrugged. It's up to you, Morrison. Though I suspect Command would be thrilled to have a human advisor embedded with galactic military operations. Do I get to try out alien video games too? I suppose that could be arranged. Then I'm in. The victory ceremony was suitably spectacular, with speeches from various galactic dignitaries, a medal that looked like it weighed more than I did, and a parade through the station that attracted crowds from dozens of star systems. I spent most of it answering questions about human gaming culture and trying to explain why we voluntarily make entertainment more difficult for ourselves. The best moment came when a young alien approached me during the reception. It looked like a cross between a dolphin and a small dragon with large, curious eyes. "Excuse me, Champion Morrison," it said in a voice that made me think of wind chimes. "I have studied your combat recordings. You made the trial look fun. Most warriors treat combat as grim necessity, but you were enjoying yourself. How is this possible?" I thought about it for a moment. Well, here's the thing. Humans have this weird trait where we turn everything into a competition or a game. We race each other just for fun. We create elaborate puzzles to solve in our spare time. We even compete over who can eat the spiciest food without crying. When we encounter a challenge, our first instinct isn't, how do we survive this? It's, how do we win this and can we do it in style? This is why you asked for hard mode? Exactly. Anyone can win the standard trial. But winning hard mode? That's worth bragging about for the rest of your life. The young alien made a sound like delighted laughter. Your species is wonderfully insane. Thanks, kid. We like to think so. Later that evening, as Red and I prepared to return to Earth with news of humanity's acceptance into galactic society, she asked the question I'd been expecting. Morrison, you realize you just made humanity's galactic reputation as the species that treats warfare like a recreational activity, right? Is that a bad thing? I honestly don't know. On one hand, it's probably going to make other species think twice before challenging us. On the other hand, we're going to get requests for military consultation from every war zone in the galaxy. Look on the bright side, Red. At least they know we're not boring. As our transport prepared for departure, I looked back at the arena where I'd just represented my entire species in mortal combat, and somehow turned it into the galaxy's most entertaining sporting event. Earth was about to join a community of thousands of worlds, each with their own cultures, technologies, and perspectives. And apparently, our contribution to galactic civilization was going to be teaching everyone else how to turn serious situations into competitive gaming scenarios. I could live with that. "Hey, Red," I said as we settled in for the journey home, "do you think they have racing circuits out here? Because I'm pretty good at those too." She just shook her head and smiled. "Morrison, something tells me this is just the beginning." She was right, of course, but that's a story for another day.